Hi everyone, today I'm going to present about our first article. The title name is Behaviorism and Construction of Knowledge by Kais Frayadi. And first of all, the author of the article is Kais Frayadi, is a PhD candidate at University Technology Mara in Malaysia. His research focuses on educational for psychology, teaching methods, and language learning. He often explores how learning theories can be applied in real classrooms. Next, in this article, he examines the principle of behaviorism and how it will contribute to building knowledge. And also, he focuses on Behave Skinner ideas as well, particularly the use of the reinforcement and influence of the environment of learning. The paper also looks like criticism, such as behaviorism lacks of attention of mental process and the creativity. Next, I'm going to talk about the main purpose of this article is to see whether behaviorism is still relevant in today's classroom and to assess how effective it is managing student behavior and improving learning outcomes. And for the method, the author used a critical review of existing studies, including Skinner's famous Skinner box experiments, as well as other scholars' research. And this topic is important because behaviorism is still influencing teaching practices today. It gives teachers clear strategies for managing behavior and motivating the students through the reward and punishments. Next, I'm going to talk about the author's main point is that behaviorism works well for changing behavior, but it's not a complete way to explain learning because it leaves out important mental and emotional aspects. And in short, I'm going to tell the article says that in behaviorism, learning happens when behavior change due to the environment and reinforcement, such like rewards or punishments, is the main method. So, but in criticize it makes learners to passive and doesn't help higher level thinking. And the author ends by saying behaviorism is useful in classrooms, especially for managing behavior, but it should be used together with other methods as well, like constructivism, for more complete way to teaching and learning. Thank you.
Hi, I'm sitting here, and the article that I have been reviewing is for the behaviorism theory in teaching and learning English as a second language in primary school. And the author of this article is Ibrahim Mukaddal, and he is Department of Linguistic Muslim in the University of Morogoro, Tanzania. This article is more to focus on the language teaching theories, including behaviorism in Tanzania's educations. The main purpose of the studies is to examine the challenge and also the using of behaviorism using the theory as well for the teaching English in Tanzania primary school. And more to it also the aims to improve English teaching practices in which several types of the barriers which is come from the educators and also the teachers as well. And then the methodology that we can find out through this article is they will be using the qualitative research using a case studies to design, and they collect data also from the reviews and also interview few types of school at there, as the interview mostly is the English teacher as well. And the main challenge is they have to face more to like psychological issues like students participating behavior more like because they are shy and also they are like quiet type and they are fear to like expose themselves while doing the interviews to them. And more to also they most of the teachers at there is like lack of training, and they doesn't have more of the behaviorism when it comes to like teachings inside the class. And also the environment challenge that is more to like they have a limited of teaching materials, and also like not much overcrowded classroom also in that article had mentioned. And I also can say that the main reason why the author wants to argue and write out this article is more to they have behaviorism alone is not enough for effective teaching, and also they should more like combining behaviorism with other teaching theories for more better results when teaching English studies. They recommend to more of psychological challenge and to improve teachers training and to enhancing the learning environment with the students as well and the teachers. The main findings and the recommendations of this article, it can be like they will be giving out like a regular in-service training for teachers to teach their students and also more, and they have to be like curriculum revisions for better language teaching, reducing class sizes and improving learning sources to make teaching more effective and more challenging and also more interesting for the students out there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Uma Gandesh. Today I'm going to explain about the comparison and synthesis for my two articles. Article 1 is Behaviorism and the Construction of Knowledge. Well, for the Article 2, Behaviorism Theory in Teaching and Learning as a Second Language in Primary School. Here I'm going to explain about 5 points in total, together with the synthesis for 2 articles for each point. So for the point 1, compare and contrast the finding. Which is for the article 1, stimulus control over response learning via stimulus response and reinforcement. Learners are passive, the environment is the key. The theory behaviorism for ignoring cognitive processes. For the article 2, behaviorism is effective for drills, memorization and error correction in English as a second language beginners. One needs to combine with other theories for full effectiveness. For the synthesis for this point is both article agree for the behaviorism is effective for habit formation, different in scope. For the article 1 is the theoretical, article 2 is applied to English as a second language teaching. For the point 2, confirm or contradict each other. For the article 1, successful reinforcement to be used for behavior modification. Well, for the article 2, there is all time to find out how powerful reinforcement in language learning. Synthesis for this point will be both principle corroborate finding. Article 2, practice with consistent with. Article 1 is theory. For the third point, relevant to main topic, there is behaviorism. For the topic 1, explicitly discusses the principle of behaviorism and its challenge in education. Well, for the article 2, puts behaviorist principle to work in actual classroom environment. For the synthesis for this point will be article 1 is helpful with theory, but article 2 was practical. For the point 4, same group of interest or similar issue. For the article 1, it particularly is learning and teaching. For the article 2, primary school second language English. For the synthesis for this point will be the end goal is to educate. Article 2 focus on the acquisition and teaching or learning same interest group. So for the point 5, same social context. For the article 1, context is general and broad, no any specific country or the subject. For the article 2, Tanzanian primary school context. For synthesis for these two, different social context, but it's scholastic lah. Both article was called scholastic. For the point 6, unique contribution or novelty. For the article 1, unifying theory behind behaviorism and constructivism, discusses what is problematic about passive learning. For the article 2, demonstrate behaviorism at work in English as a second language. Let's with other theories context the case of developing country. For the synthesis for this point will be article 1, critical of frame theory in language teaching, and article 2 on the same topic, but we focus on the classroom practice to be truly unique when it's combined. Thank you.
Hi, I am Thor. I will be presenting my part about the critical review. In this article, actually, I found out few points that are worth to point out. The first point is the researcher used appropriate research method, for example, qualitative method. I think this is appropriate because the investigation is to look into how the behaviorism can help or any challenges when the teacher is teaching English using behaviorism. So it involves direct finding of how the teacher thinks and how the teacher feels when they are teaching English by using behaviorism. Secondly, the researcher used different types of sources. For example, electronic articles, dissertation, books, from website, ERIC, Science Direct. This can create a more well-versed of the sources. Thirdly, the inclusion criteria is appropriate. The data the researcher collected involves those data which has teacher experience in teaching English and teacher who apply behaviorism while teaching English. Lastly, the findings are presented in a comprehensive way by the researcher. The researcher concluded the findings and divided it into two categories: learner-based challenges and environmental challenges. In learner-based challenges, the researcher give example of like physical, psychological challenges like anxiety when speak English in the class, unsatisfied attendance of the students, and biological challenges like speech disorder. However, there are some point that I think that is less satisfied in the article. Firstly, the researcher did not include all the sources, even the sources fixed the inclusion criteria. The researcher gave the reason that there are too many sources, so he did not include all the sources. So I think this may cause bias to the findings. Secondly, the data are too little. Only six teachers' point of view in the research. So I think actually in the first place, the researcher cannot exclude some of the sources. If the sources fix the inclusion criteria, they all should be included. Lastly, there are assumptions made when selecting the teacher. Okay, for example, in the article, the researcher admit that they assume some of the teacher apply the behaviorism when teaching English. But to me, the assumption should not be made because when you assume the teacher apply behaviorism in teaching, you are collecting the data which is not accurate because you should collect the data which really the teacher is using behaviorism while teaching English. In this presentation, I will focus on the critical review for another journal article, which is Behaviorism and the Construction of Knowledge. There are 2 points I think that is less satisfied, and another 2 points I think they are worth to point them out. Firstly, which I think the thing which is less satisfied is the researcher cover the investigation in the research too wide. So end up the research is not focused and the research finding is not in detail in the end. The finding is too surface. The author covers six investigations in the research. Okay, for example, in the investigation of the critics and witness of behaviorism in learning, researchers that it is anti-mentalism and focus this argument by giving the work of other authors stating that human being does not have own will, does not have intention, and does not have self-determination. Okay, so mm from this aspect, actually, I would expect more of the finding, like looking in the article, which have the quantitative finding about a hypothesis. For example, maybe studies a group of the student when learning a subject and how was the finding when the teacher using behaviorism. I would expect more about it. And another point that I think that is less satisfied is the source selection from the researcher is a bit narrow. About 29 sources the author using, only 3 sources is from dissertation and the other are all from books. Despite this, I mentioned some of the point which I think which is good. I think the researcher can investigate and put the investigation supported by example of how other author views of the behaviorism. For example, the researcher sketched the view of Lisa, how punishment and reward are given based on a behavior. Secondly, he pointed out the view of Thomas about how behaviorism do not involve stage of mind in learning. And finally, the researcher speak out the opinion of Invarson about behaviorism cannot explain linguistic generativity. All this cover the weakness and critiques of investigation into behaviorism in teaching and learning. Lastly, I think the researcher present his content in a very coherent way, so I can get the point very well. Thank you. This is all my presentation.
My name is Punita. So this slide sums up the key points from the critical review of 2 journal articles on behaviorism. One is by Faryadi and one is by Kadao. So I'll quickly walk you through their main findings and my overall takeaway. Faryadi's article takes a more theoretical angle. He argues that behaviorism is too mechanical. It treats learning as just stimulus and response and ignores higher level thinking skills like reasoning, problem solving, and creativity. He also questions Skinner's reliance on experiments with animals, saying they don't fully represent human learning. But he doesn't dismiss behaviorism entirely. He notes it works well in areas like skill acquisition, behavior change, and structured training. His suggestion is to combine reinforcement strategies from behaviorism with cognitive and constructivist approaches to make learning more complete. Kadao's research looks at behaviorism in a real-world context, like Tanzanian primary schools teaching ESL. He found 3 major barriers: learner issues like motivation and anxiety, teachers' gaps such as lack of training in behaviorist method, and environmental challenges like large class sizes and limited resources. He recommends solutions such as improving teacher training and design culturally relevant curriculum. However, his study is limited to only one cultural context and focuses only on behaviorism without considering other approaches. He also suggests blending reinforcement with more interactive student-centered teaching. Both articles agree that while behaviorism has strengths, it's not enough on its own. A hybrid approach that mixes behaviorist reinforcement with other learning theories can address its weaknesses and improve educational outcomes. Future research should look at how these blended models can adapt to different contexts. So, thank you.